The Timeless Strategies of Takeda Shingen, Lessons for Modern Leaders. Picture Silicon Valley's most brilliant CEOs gathering to study a 16th-century Japanese warlord's military handbook. Imagine West Point cadets analyzing battle formations devised nearly 5 centuries ago. This isn't fiction. This is the legacy of Takeda Shingen, the legendary Tiger of Kai, whose military genius continues to influence modern strategic thinking. In 1542, as Europe was exploring the New World, a 21-year-old Japanese warrior was about to revolutionize military strategy in ways that would echo through the centuries. Standing atop the wooden towers of Tsutsujigasaki Castle, young Takeda Harunobu, later known as Shingen, gazed across the mountainous province of Kai. Unlike his contemporaries who sought mere conquest, this young leader was developing a comprehensive system of warfare that would later be studied alongside Sun Tzu's Art of War. But what made Takeda Shingen different? While other warlords relied on brute force, Shingen understood that true power lay in the perfect balance of speed and patience, aggression and stillness, principles that would become immortalized in his famous battle standard, Furinka-zan, wind, forest, fire, and mountain. Swift as the wind, silent as a forest, fierce as fire, and immovable as a mountain. These words weren't just a catchy slogan. They represented the world's first comprehensive doctrine of mobile warfare. Imagine a modern army that could strike with the speed of an F-22 Raptor, move as quietly as a special forces team, hit with the devastating power of an artillery barrage, and hold ground like a fortified position. This was Shingen's vision, centuries before mechanized warfare. Let's break down how this revolutionary strategy worked in practice. In 1542, Shingen faced his first major challenge, the Battle of Seizawa. His opponents expected traditional samurai warfare, honorable single combat, and straightforward cavalry charges. Instead, they encountered something entirely different. Shingen's troops moved like water, flowing through the valleys and around enemy positions. His cavalry didn't just charge, they executed complex flanking maneuvers that would look familiar to modern tank commanders. But Shingen's genius went beyond the battlefield. In an era when most warlords focused solely on military might, he created Japan's first merit-based administration system. Think of it as a medieval Japanese version of modern corporate structure. Farmers who showed exceptional skill could become samurai. Merchants who demonstrated loyalty could gain noble status. This revolutionary system created an army where every soldier believed they could rise through the ranks, much like the modern U.S. military's emphasis on merit-based promotion. The cornerstone of Shingen's military innovation was his famous cavalry unit, the Red Army. But forget the popular image of samurai as lone warriors. Shingen's cavalry operated more like modern special forces teams, with each unit specifically trained for different terrain and weather conditions. They practiced year-round in the harsh mountains of Kai Province, developing tactics that would look surprisingly familiar to today's military strategists. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of Shingen's military genius was his understanding of psychological warfare. He knew that victory in battle wasn't just about superior numbers or better weapons. It was about breaking the enemy's will to fight. During the famous Battle of Uedahara in 1548, Shingen's forces faced a numerically superior enemy. Instead of engaging in direct combat, he employed a strategy that today's military calls force multiplication. His troops created the illusion of a much larger army by using multiple battle standards and carefully choreographed movements. The enemy, convinced they were facing an overwhelming force, retreated without a major battle. This same principle is used today in modern military deception operations, proving that psychological warfare hasn't changed much in 5 centuries. But Shingen's most enduring legacy might be his understanding of what modern business leaders call supply chain management. He realized that an army's effectiveness wasn't just about its fighting ability, it was about how well you could keep it supplied. He established a network of roads, granaries, and relay stations throughout his territory that would rival modern logistics systems. These roads, known as Shingen-do, Shingen's roads, were so well designed that many are still in use today as major highways in Japan. But to truly understand Shingen's military genius, we need to examine what military historians consider the greatest rivalry in Japanese history: the epic confrontation between Takeda Shingen and Uesugi Kenshin, known as the Dragon of Echigo. Think of it as a medieval Japanese version of Patton versus Rommel, played out over 2 decades across the mountainous heart of Japan. The most famous of their confrontations were the battles of Kawanakajima, a series of 5 major engagements that would reshape military thinking in Japan. The 4th battle, fought in 1561, stands as one of the most tactically sophisticated engagements in samurai warfare, rivaling the complexity of modern military operations. Imagine the scene. A crisp autumn morning in 1561, with mist rising from the Chikuma River. 2 of Japan's most brilliant commanders are about to engage in what would become known as the chess game of the gods. Shingen had positioned his army in his famous crane wing formation, a tactical innovation that modern military theorists still study for its flexibility and defensive strength. But Uesugi Kenshin had a surprise in store. In a move that would impress even modern special operations planners, he led a night march through terrain considered impassable, positioning his forces for a dawn attack on Shingen's headquarters. The ensuing battle would become legendary not just for its scale, with over 40,000 warriors engaged in combat, but for its tactical sophistication. What happened next has become the stuff of legend, though modern historians debate its details. According to chronicles of the time, Kenshin's forces broke through to Shingen's command post. In what would become one of the most famous episodes in samurai history, Kenshin himself reportedly charged into Shingen's headquarters. Shingen, armed only with a war fan, an incident that would later inspire the design of modern military command batons, allegedly parried Kenshin's sword strikes until reinforcements arrived. But beyond the drama of personal combat, what truly set this battle apart was its sophisticated use of combined arms tactics, strategies that wouldn't become common in Western warfare until centuries later. Shingen's army coordinated cavalry, infantry, and missile troops in a way that remarkably resembles modern military doctrine. His famous rolling wave attack pattern, where units would attack in coordinated waves while maintaining a mobile reserve, is surprisingly similar to modern shield and spear tactical doctrine. The battle also showcased Shingen's mastery of terrain and weather conditions. He positioned his arquebus units, the equivalent of modern snipers, on high ground where the morning sun would be at their backs, blinding enemy forces. This understanding of environmental factors in warfare is still taught in military academies today. But perhaps most impressive was Shingen's use of what we now call information warfare. He maintained an extensive network of scouts and spies, creating what modern military planners would recognize as a sophisticated intelligence-gathering operation. His forces used a system of flag signals and drum codes that allowed for rapid communication across the battlefield, a precursor to modern military communications networks. The aftermath of Kawanakajima demonstrated another aspect of Shingen's genius, his understanding of strategic withdrawal. When the battle reached a stalemate, both commanders withdrew their forces in good order, preserving their armies for future operations. This concept of strategic preservation of force is a fundamental principle in modern military planning. What's particularly fascinating is how Shingen adapted his tactics after each encounter with Kenshin. He would analyze each battle, modify his strategies, and implement new training regimens for his troops, creating what modern business would call a continuous improvement cycle. His war council meetings, documented in contemporary sources, read like modern after-action reports, complete with detailed analysis of what worked and what didn't. The sophistication of Shingen's military organization extended to his logistics system. He maintained detailed records of supplies, training, and troop movements, creating what we would now call a military bureaucracy. His system of unit rotation and rest periods shows an understanding of combat stress that wouldn't become standard military practice until the 20th century. While Shingen's military achievements are legendary, his greatest legacy might be something that modern CEOs would immediately recognize: his revolutionary approach to organizational management and economic development. In an era when most warlords focused solely on military conquest, Shingen was essentially running a 16th-century version of a modern corporation, complete with strategic planning, resource management, and brand development. Consider his approach to talent management. In feudal Japan, social status was typically fixed at birth. Imagine a corporate structure where your father's job determined your entire career path. Shingen shattered this convention by implementing what we'd now call a merit-based promotion system. He famously declared, "Whether farmer or merchant, any man with talent shall be recognized." This radical approach created an organization where talent could rise from anywhere, much like modern tech companies that hire CEOs from unconventional backgrounds. His economic policies were equally forward-thinking. While other warlords merely collected taxes, Shingen created what modern economists would recognize as a comprehensive economic development plan. He standardized weights and measures, think medieval ISO standards, established fair trade practices, and even implemented price controls during times of shortage, policies that wouldn't look out of place in modern economic management. Perhaps most impressive was his infrastructure development program. The famous Shingen-Do road system wasn't just for military use. It was the medieval equivalent of modern highway systems, designed to facilitate trade and economic growth. He built bridges, maintained roads, and established way stations that served as both military posts and commercial centers. This network was so well designed that many of its routes form the basis of modern Japanese highways. Shingen's approach to resource management was centuries ahead of its time. He implemented what we'd now call sustainable forestry practices, ensuring that timber, a critical resource for both construction and warfare, was harvested at a rate that allowed for natural replenishment. He also developed sophisticated irrigation systems and flood control measures, understanding that environmental management was crucial for long-term economic stability. But perhaps Shingen's most modern-seeming innovation was his approach to brand building. The famous Furinkazan banner wasn't just a military standard. It was a sophisticated piece of marketing that created a strong, recognizable brand identity for his organization. The four characters became so associated with excellence and reliability that merchants would proudly display the Takeda clan symbol on their shops, much like modern businesses display trusted certification marks. His diplomatic practices also reflect modern corporate alliance strategies. Rather than simply conquering neighboring territories, Shingen often preferred to create strategic partnerships through marriage alliances, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. This approach to relationship building and network development would be familiar to any modern business development executive. The sophisticated nature of Shingen's government is reflected in the Koshu Hato, his code of law and administration. This comprehensive document covered everything from military regulations to economic policies, creating what we'd now call standard operating procedures. The code was so well designed that parts of it continued to influence Japanese law well into the modern era. Looking at Shingen's achievements through a modern lens, we can identify several key leadership principles that remain relevant today. Innovation doesn't mean abandoning tradition. It means adapting it to new circumstances. True leadership combines strategic thinking with practical implementation. Building strong organizations requires both strict standards and flexibility to adapt. Long-term success depends on developing both human capital and infrastructure. The best leaders think beyond immediate victories to create lasting systems and structures. These principles have found their way into modern military and business education. The United States Military Academy at West Point includes studies of Shingen's strategic principles in its curriculum. Major corporations send executives to Japan to study the administrative systems he developed. His methods of combining strict discipline with organizational flexibility continue to influence modern management theory. As we look at the challenges facing modern organizations, from corporations to governments, Shingen's integrated approach to leadership offers valuable lessons. In an era of rapid technological change and global competition, his ability to balance innovation with tradition, speed with stability, and aggressive action with careful planning remains remarkably relevant. The Tiger of Kai's roar still echoes across the centuries, teaching us that true leadership transcends time and culture. Whether you're a military commander, a CEO, or anyone facing leadership challenges, Shingen's principles offer a timeless guide to achieving success while building lasting institutions. Thank you for watching this exploration of one of history's greatest strategists. If you enjoyed learning about Takeda Shingen's enduring influence on military and business strategy, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We'll be bringing you more fascinating stories from Japanese history that continue to shape our world today. Remember to hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest content. Don't forget to check out our other videos about legendary Japanese historical figures and their influence on modern leadership and strategy. See you.